something I never tried before. I am going to try and replace this factory seat, which the back doesn't look too bad. The bottom is kind of trashed and the springs are, you can see the springs hanging out in the bottom here. It's not in the best of shape, but it's not in the worst of shape either. So I'm going to try and replace it with a newer seat. This is actually a rear seat out of a 2015 Ford F-150. Now the problem I'll have is adjustability. A rear seat in a pickup truck, of course, never meant to adjust. And you can see on the bottom here, see if I can flip that all the way over for you. There we go. You see how this guy mounts on the bottom? It doesn't work for us at all. What I'm going to see if we can do is see if we can somehow modify it to fit inside this 1966 Chevy half-ton. So I'm going to get started by, I think I'm going to remove the seat track. I'm going to just remove the seat itself off the track. And then we'll start with that and see how it looks. So under here you'll see those bolts. And I don't know if I can get that one or not. Yeah, see those? I'll take those off first and I'll actually leave the perches and the seat rail adjuster. And we'll see what we got. All right. I'll be back. Okay, so that was a fairly simple process. It was 8 bolts, 8 3/8 bolts. You can see where they bolted in here, 2 here, 2 here, and then another 4 over on that side. I think the first problem we're going to have is the height of this. You see it sits so much higher up deeper into the bucket or into the seat than the front. We're probably going to have to modify something there to use the other seats. But I will, I'm going to take that seat bottom and toss it in there and give you an idea what it looks like in just a minute. Okay, so that went about as bad as expected. Clearly they don't line up. This is supposed to be mounted on the floor. I don't think there's any way we're going to use those tracks as is, but I have another plan. I'm thinking about removing the seat bottom and using this frame for that seat to sit in. That way we could still bolt everything to it using those bolt holes for the front, and I guess it would be those bolt holes for the back. Will it work? I don't know. We're gonna find out though. I'm gonna start tearing this apart and see if that frame itself will work with that other seat. I don't know. Stay tuned. I'll tear this thing apart and find out where we stand. Okay, so I got the foam and the seat cover off. It basically just wraps over the bottom and is held on by these clips. So if you just go around and push these clips off, there's a bunch of them. That'll release the vinyl, and once the vinyl's off, you can just pull that and the foam off there and you're good to go. Let me get this thing laid out and I'll remove those springs. Okay, so I got the springs and the foam removed. I got it sitting on here. You can see that this will bolt in just like that, but I need to see if I can marry that seat bottom to it, basically removing all that framing, and install the seat on this. I think what's going to have to happen is that this rail that runs across here will have to be dropped down to be the same height as this. So that means this will have to be shortened as well. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try the seats. I can't imagine they're going to work with this here. What the heck, we'll give her a go anyway. We'll see where we end up, but chances are what I'm going to end up doing is cutting this, re-welding it so that these are still in the same spot but down low, and then taking this L bracket off here and then welding that back on at the bottom. But let's let me pull that seat apart and see how it lines up. Well, that's how she's sitting in there right now. Might be a little high for my liking, to be honest. Not sure if I'm going to use the tray, but regardless, I'm going to continue on, and we will cut that, drop it. We'll cut those, drop them, and we'll see how she lays in. I think it's going to be a little tall for my liking, but we'll give her a go anyway and see what happens. Stay tuned. I'm going to do some chopping, cutting, and welding. Okay, so I got it in. So I ended up cutting that down from up here, cut her down, slipped her in. I did have to weld in a little patch right here. I settled on 18¼ inches across. A test fit the little piece in there, and it seems to fit okay. I'm going to test fit the whole thing here shortly, but right now I got her bolted in. What I did was, with this back bracket that was tall, I just flattened it out, and then I ran a few welds in there, and same as back in here, and back in around here. So basically just flatten that down. If you didn't want to weld it, you could flatten that down, drill some holes, and bolt it, I suppose. But yeah, it seems to be the right height. It still allows me my ability to move it front and back. And the back, I haven't figured out what to do yet. Worst case, I can throw some carpet up here and just let it rest against there. But I think we can do better. But one thing at a time. Let's let this, I just touched it up with a little bit of spray paint. Let that dry for a few minutes, and I'll grab the seat. We'll throw that in. I also need to figure out something for a support, because there's I'll show you. Hang tight. So anyway, yeah, that worked. So I cut off the back piece, dropped it down, moved it back about 1¼ inch. I had to weld in a plug here, just a little piece of sheet metal, and then flattened down the rear bracket, laid it down on it, ran some welds. Like I say, you could use bolts if you wanted to. It would work just as well. Anyway, hang tight. Let me grab the seat. Okay, she's in. I'm real happy with the fit up. Okay, so quick little recap here. I went with 18¼ inches from front to back for the spacing in between the L, if you will, from the front and back. The back has like a little shelf, and so does the front, and so do the sides. So side to side just stayed factory. From front to back, I ended up lopping off the top of the seat bracket, which was up here, and then re-welded it back here and moved it back a bit until I had 18¼ inches between the two. I did end up welding in a little filler piece here. You could go a little more, probably 18½ or 18¾ would be fine. I wanted it to wedge in here nice and tight, and it does. It's tight, maybe a little too tight, but I can live with it. I'm fine. It's super strong. It's not going anywhere. Up here between the seats, there was another support. So on this seat and on this seat, they're both a female, and then there's a support with a male rod that goes into each. And I was able to just lop the forward piece, and it happened to be exactly 5 inches. So I didn't even need to modify anything else. I just slapped it in there, and it sits where it needs to be. So that's pretty perfect. Gives the guy a little more room between the seat and the steering wheel, I'd say, and also between the lower seat and the steering wheel. Just a recap on the bottom here, these supports. Let me just grab my light.
these supports. So that's the front one. I just left it factory. On the back one, it has that, it had that riser that came up to about here. So what I did is down here, I literally just folded it over. You can see it there. I literally just folded it over and welded it to the pan. Pretty simple. And then this piece here I welded on, and then I put in that little filler patch. So that worked out pretty good. And I still have adjustability. So this still moves forward and back just by the use of that handle there. The only thing I did run into is the back. So I couldn't use the hinged back support. I just didn't have room for it. So this is really just kind of wedged in there and then sitting against these brackets up top, which keeps it still flush to the gas tank really, but this is carrying the support of it. So this kind of sits against the gas tank to about here and then starts to pull away. Pulls away, and there's no problem with the wiring. It's not up against anything. Same as the fuel line, it's not up against anything. I don't think that seat's going anywhere. I don't think the back of it is an issue, to be honest with you. So that's out of a 2015 Ford F-150. It's nothing special for a seat. It's probably as plain Jane as you can get, just black vinyl. There's no cup holder or anything. But it just goes to show you, I think you can put just about any rear seat into these trucks if you utilize that pan. Because that pan, or the seat frame, if you will, and the seat tracks, all that stuff, you can basically just make a big tray for that seat to sit in. So there you go. That's 2015 Ford F-150 rear seat install in a 1966 C10. Again, I think you could use just about any seat as long as it's wide enough and you modify that seat frame and seat tracks and stands and all that. If you got that, I think you're golden. Away you go. All right, good luck to you. And let me know what you end up putting in.